Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. I'm George Conley with Scratch Golf Tips. Today we're looking at the golf swing of Sungjae Im, former PGA Tour Rookie of the Year, has won a couple times out on tour, a real grinder out there, certainly a fan favorite in just the way he carries himself, but the golf swing itself is very interesting in its swing rhythm, and there's a lot that we can learn from things that Sungjae has learned from in his own golf swing. Now, starting off with the tempo itself, it's no secret that Sunjae Im has a very slow and deliberate takeaway. If you watch it in real time, it kind of looks like that takeaway is actually done in slow motion. And what is actually pretty interesting is Sunjae has actually fairly recently made that takeaway a little bit faster. If you remember 2 or 3 years ago, that tempo was so slow, and it actually kind of worked away from what he had in mind in the first place when making the swing change. So he shortened it up just a little bit, but in an interview that he did with Golf Digest a while ago, he talked about how important that swing tempo is in order to keep him synchronized. He said when he was taking the club back a little bit further, all aspects of his body and all aspects of the golf swing, they weren't together. And obviously when things aren't working together, you're going to lack that consistency. So one thing that can absolutely be taken away from Sungjae's swing is that if you feel like you're coming out of sync often, and when I say out of sync, I'm not talking about hitting the occasional shank, I'm not talking about occasionally slicing the ball, I'm talking about you feel your hips are just way in front of the rest of your body, or maybe your hands are starting the golf swing. If you feel out of sync, if you don't feel that togetherness, try slowing down the tempo a little bit. There are a few people who have very fast tempos who can get away with staying synced up, and that's not only because they practice so much, but it's also because they're just such excellent athletes. Again, these are professional athletes. For the average golfer who's looking to improve their swing, slowing down that tempo a little bit can really benefit you from a synchronization standpoint. Another aspect of the swing that Im has worked on a lot is his arm extension, and I think that for most golfers, the real incentive to get those arms extended is a further generation of power. Sungjae Im has actually gained some pretty decent distance recently, and I think a big result of that is from the arm extension that we see. Because that takeaway is so slow and controlled, he can get those arms exactly in that position that he wants to be, and that arm extension does absolutely great things for his distance, especially off the tee. So if you don't have that full arm extension, I'm not saying max out your arm extension, but trying to get those arms a little bit further away from your body, create some more swing width, that is a great way to really add some power and some club face speed to your golf swing. So it's something to experiment with. Certainly it doesn't work for everyone, and if you want really solid arm extension, you certainly need to be in the gym working on strength and flexibility, but it is a great place to start if you're looking to get some distance on your swings. Now let's talk about the move through transition, most specifically the wrist. Now, something that Sungjae struggled with pretty notably before he really got on a tear on the PGA Tour was having a little bit of a cupped wrist in the move through transition. Now, when you have that cupped wrist, what will normally happen is if it gets a little bit out of control, you're going to be inadvertently opening up the club face. And when you have that open club face, not only will you see that ball fade a little bit more dramatically than you want, but it becomes much more difficult to control, and it also increases your RPM of the ball, or your rotations per minute, and that will create a slice. Slices, obviously it's difficult to aim. It's never a pretty golf shot, but what a lot of people don't think about with slices is it takes off a great deal of distance on your drives. So if you have that open club face through impact and it's a result of a cupped wrist, that's pretty hard to work away from, but Im was able to do so. Im's main focus was on just simply flattening out that wrist. And there's a few ways that you can do this. I think that one of the most popular ways is through swing trainers. There's a lot of great swing trainers. You can actually go in the description at the Scratch Golf Tips store. We have a great wrist aid in that store at a pretty decent price that you can look at. But if you want to be flattening those wrists, it's a very touchy motion to play with. I've seen a lot of people through a lot of swing changes. If you're changing your tempo or your swing path, that's one thing. But please be careful when changing your wrist angles. It is not easy. If you have a slightly cupped or a slightly bowed wrist, I would say just work on your release pattern. Work on controlling the club face through your release, feeling that in your trail palm. If you're a right-handed golfer, feeling that in your right palm, getting a little bit stronger, taking control at that impact positioning. If you have big issues with the wrist, that's certainly something that you're going to have to address, but I wouldn't say go through a full overhaul of your golf swing, and nor did Sungjae Im. He did make a slight tweak He was slightly cupped at times, then he flattened it out. So I think when looking at wrist positioning also, this is a great time to utilize slow motion if you have it on your cell phone. Film yourself down the line like most of these videos are filmed in slow motion, and zoom in on your wrist action, because a lot of people overlook it, and it is a very important aspect of your golf swing, so don't overlook it. So those are just a few things that I noticed in the golf swing of Sungjae Im. Obviously, a young man with a ton of potential, has already seen some great success, has countless great finishes on the PGA Tour, and has showed up pretty well at majors too. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on the golf swing. If you have any questions on anything that I mentioned throughout the video, leave them in the comment section below. I'd be happy to clear them up. If you have any additional thoughts on anything that I failed to mention, also leave those in the comment section down below. I read and reply to all comments on these videos. As always, thank you all very much for watching. Play well and take care.